Hold
Yeah.
on, I will edit this part out, but you know what I did forget? Should I grab some paper? Is that going to be, do you think that would help? Because I was definitely drawing maps and keeping
There's no
inventory.
actually there's no map. This is one room, the science lab.
Okay, cool. Forget it then.
You might want the paper to take notes, but you're smart.
Nah, you know what? We'll do it live.
Do it live. Yeah, exactly.
Hello, Internet. Welcome back to the laboratory. My name is Brainy Bill from Bill, Louden Science, and I am super excited today for episode 2 of Talk Some Science. The idea behind this series is I want to talk to people who are really interested in science but may not do it professionally. How can science influence our lives just in our everyday lives and in our jobs and in the way that our world works without being in a laboratory like this very real, very professional laboratory. And to help me explore that exact idea today is Jared A. Sorensen, founder of Memento Mori Theatricks and author, writer, designer of Parsely games.
Hey, Brainy Bill.
Awesome.
It's been a while.
Nice. It has been a while. Jared A. Sorensen is the founder of Memento Mori Theatricks, game design from beyond the grave. Did I say that right, or did you want to give it a different?
That's fine.
Jared started Memento Mori Theatricks in 1997 to publish tabletop RPGs. He also started working in the computer games industry that same year. In 2003, he created Action Castle, the first ever Parsely game, and we'll talk about that. But I also want to mention some awards and credits. First of all, multiple Gen Con appearances, right?
Oh, yeah.
At least one, and I think multiple indie RPG awards. Oh, out of the box awards. And then also the one I really wanted to highlight was you were a presenter at the Boston Museum of Science during the Cambridge Science Week. And as a last line, you are considered to be one of the founding fathers of indie role-playing, and you live in New York City. Could you even, tell us a little bit about that brainchild, like indie role-playing? What is it that, not necessarily what is that, well, what is it, but then also what makes it stand out, what makes it awesome?
In the 70s, D&D was created by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. And there were many games over the next 20 years or so. And then in the late 90s, there was this kind of new style of games, of tabletop role-playing games that were a little different, a little more challenging, a little more strange. Anything from playing puppets to telling stories without dice, and just different ways of doing that kind of classic tabletop role-playing game activity. No more dungeons, no more dragons.
So we met each other in another science enrichment program.
Yep.
And one of the very first things we were assigned to together, we had a lot of downtime. And I don't even remember exactly how you introduced it, but you introduced Action Castle,
yep,
which then is part of the Parsely game series. Parsely Games.
I got one too.
Book. We have we each have our own copy.
Yeah, I actually have 3,000 of these. You only have
awesome.
One. I have about 3,000 of them.
And you're hoping to sell at least 2,999 of them?
I mean, this is my copy. This is my copy that I bring with me and I play with, although I've kind of memorized everything in it, so I don't really need it, but it looks good.
Can you just give us a little description of Parsely, where the name comes from, and then we can kind of leaf through the book. I don't want to give a whole lot away. I will say that, so start with what was the parser kind of game style?
So a parser was a computer program that would translate English, just typed in English phrases, short, simple phrases. It would translate it into something the computer could understand, and then the computer would spit back a response. So that's called a parser. For example, back in the old days, before graphics, or not necessarily before graphics, but it was a lot easier to do text than graphics. So you'd have the computer program would say something like, you find yourself in a dark cave. What do you do? And then you would type in, look, and then the computer you'd press return, return key, and the computer would spit back, it's too dark to see. You're in a dark cave. What, did I stutter? And it would usually be kind of sarcastic about it. It would gradually have more and more choices and more details. There would be danger. You might be able to even pick up items and carry them with you to use later. And these are text parsers. The most famous one was called Zork. And my game, Action Castle, I'll flip to the logo, because it was so inspirational that I actually ripped off the Zork logo to make the Action Castle logo.
This is your kind of brainchild, right?
Yeah.
So instead of you sitting at a computer as the interface, somebody actually plays the part of the computer, plays the role of the computer.
It's a role-playing game where one person is the computer who is very limited in their memory and their ability to understand human language. And they tend to be very sarcastic and sometimes mean, just like those games were not very forgiving if you got the wrong word, and they would make fun of you.
Yeah.
I like to do that as well.
It definitely comes as you play a few rounds. You start to kind of loosen up a little bit and take a little more liberty with your responses. Although that
I do not. No. I'm incredibly mean the whole way, even with little kids. I've played this game with 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, and treat them the same as adults. I'm just
all computer would.
The computer does not care how old you are. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But the advantage is if somebody's having a little problem, I can kind of modulate to fit their play style. So I'm not completely cold and heartless and not feeling. I do have emotions.
The book itself is gorgeous, like just as a piece of art. It's got everything I love. I am a huge fan of synthwave, a huge fan of 8-bit and pixel art, huge fan of sci-fi, fantasy.
Every picture is done by one of my favorite artists that I've ever worked with.
Mm-hmm.
So like this game, this one.
That was the one I just opened.
Flaming Goat. Yeah, it's right in the middle. So Todd James, who's this amazing artist, he's a friend of mine, and we met playing role-playing games, actually. And he drew these amazing pictures from his game that he was playing. And I was like, wow, would you do art for me for my game? And he's like, sure. So this artist is another New Yorker, Ariel ZB, and he does a lot of poster artwork for synthwave bands. And I asked him, hey, would you, your work is amazing. Would you do this work for me? And he's like, yeah, I'd love to.
And I think the poster behind you there is another game series, right? On the other side?
Yeah, so these are all from, so these over here, this is artwork from my game Inspectors, which is that ghost hunting game I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm.
Funny story, this is actually the movie poster for the movie that they made of Inspectors, which still makes me it makes me laugh to think that they actually made a movie. So, and you can see it. It's on Amazon Prime.
Awesome. And then there are other games also. Check out the website.
So you can actually get a demo of Parsely, the PDF, which comes with the instructions on how to play, and then Action Castle for free. And then there's some other stuff for free on my site as well.
Nice.
So if you like it, you get the book.
Yeah, definitely get the book.
If you don't like it, you can still get the book. Right?
What is it about science that you find interesting, just from a personal perspective? Is there any kind of particular science that you follow, or is it just more of a general thing?
The thing I like about science is just finding out cool facts or the way things work, surprises about how life in the universe work. Where I'm like, why does this happen? And I mean, it's everything from, why is the sky blue, right? That's like one of the first questions you ask as a kid. And then you find out, you're like, well, that's neat. And that just leads to more questions. And also, I like having kind of a quiver of weird stuff to tell people when I meet them. Just load up the quiver full of weird facts, and I will just talk about that stuff for hours. Actually, and when I'm doing games like Free Market, which takes place on a space station near the planet Saturn, I got to do a lot of research about Saturn and its moons, and one of Saturn's moons looks exactly like the Death Star from Star Wars. That was cool. Nice. I decided that would be a great place to store, to basically turn into a giant hard drive, to store all the information in the universe that we had discovered, make a solid state hard drive on this moon. And it's all inspiration for my games.
Well, that I think was even one of my questions, so there are ways that science can influence game creation, and we'll talk a little bit about mechanics soon, But what about, okay, also these games, fantasy, sci-fi, in what ways do you have to kind of step away from science? And do you have to kind of make that a conscious decision?
Well, so the funny thing is, if you're doing something like science fiction or fantasy, you have a lot of leeway on what you can get away with, right? You can have anti-gravity, you can have lasers, you can have cryo suspension chambers, you can have aliens. But if you do introduce anything science related, you really gotta nail it, because people will accept anti-gravity and they'll accept aliens and they'll accept whatever, a robot that can follow you around and do things for you. But it all has to make sense. It all has to be internally consistent in the world. That's the challenge. And it's also, I think that's the cool part, because it's easy to just say, this is true. And you just wave your hands and you say, accept it, it's true. But if you build it so that you're like, I know this is crazy, but if you follow that thread all the way through, you'll see it's all based on real stuff.
What about psychology? You know, so we've talked a little bit about physics and chemistry and, you know, how laws of the universe apply in game.
Yeah.
What do you have to really appreciate about psychology and human behavior, especially when designing the mechanics of the game?
Yeah. So a friend and I, the co-writer of this game, Free Market, my friend Luke Crane and I, we used to do a seminar at conventions. Remember those conventions when people would gather in one place, like thousands and thousands of people? It was crazy. It was a lot of fun. So we would do these seminars called Game Design is Mind Control. And we would do a presentation that was the pitch, was game design is mind control. A game is prompting or provoking a player to do something they normally wouldn't do, or something they wouldn't do in a we call it irrational. So we'll get them to do something in an irrational manner. And our kind of text example is one of the oldest games ever played by humans, which is running, a running race. And we have a picture of an oval track and two people. They start here and they start running, and they're running around the track. And about halfway, this person is ahead of this person. And their goal is to get down here to the beginning. And whoever makes that loop first wins, right? That's the game. Now we're like, okay, how can this person beat this person? If he can't or she can't go any faster, what's the only way that person can win? They cheat. They cut through the track. Now, rationally, that is how you beat that person, right? But it's a game. And the game rule says, even though it makes the most sense to just cut right across, the game says you have to go all the way around. So it's putting a constraint or a limitation on your normal human behavior in order to get you to do something the hardest or the strangest way possible. And that's what every game is. It's getting you to do something the hardest or strangest way possible.
So my last question, I want to give you the opportunity, the plug, right? What do you have going on? Website, social media, things to look forward in the future.
You can get Parsely wherever Parsely is sold. So on my website, mementomori.com, you'll have a link, memento-mori.com. I always forget the dash, but it's very important. And this is a $30 hardback. You can get the PDF with it, which is pretty cool. And that is free with the book. And if you just want the PDF, it's $20. And like I said, there's the demo version, which is free 99, free 99. I also am working on the 20th anniversary edition of Inspectors. 20 years, buddy. That's right. He doesn't say anything. So that game is 20 years old next year, and I'm doing a new version of it.
I am absolutely tickled. We kind of went back and forth about which game we would play for the Parsely book. And we arrived at, you offered to create a custom game.
Yeah, let's do the hardest thing possible.
And the name of it is?
It's Locked Up Laboratory.
Well, I've got my lab coat on. I am ready to be locked up.
You know what? I'm going to put on my lab coat too, since we're in the laboratory. This is a game about talking and listening. That's it. That's usually the only instructions I give, is talk and listen. So welcome to Locked Up Laboratory. You are locked in the science lab. It's very dark. A white lab coat hangs on the door.
Take lab coat.
You now have the lab coat.
Check pockets.
You look in the pockets and you find a pen in the front pocket, a pair of safety goggles in the side pocket, and in the other pocket, a pair of latex safety gloves.
Put on goggles.
You wear the goggles. They will protect your eyes.
Put on safety gloves.
One size fits all. These gloves will keep your hands clean and dry.
Find light switch.
You fumble around in the darkness, but you can't find the light switch. I'm going to tell you what I tell every Parsely player who gets stuck. Always look at everything.
Check pen.
Wait a minute. It only looks like a pen. It's really a mini flashlight.
All right. So we're good. All right. Click on the pen light.
You turn it on and the flashlight glows with dim purple light. Near the exit, you can make out a metal locker and a plastic bucket.
Open locker.
You open the locker. Inside are some chemicals. There's also a glass flask, a plastic squeeze bottle, and a small measuring scoop.
Check chemicals.
There's 2 small bottles labeled sodium perborate and luminol. And there's a jug of bleach and a jug of what looks to be distilled water.
Excellent. One of my favorite reactions. All right. Check flask.
You look at the flask. It's an Erlenmeyer flask named after Dr. Flask.
Erlenmeyer.
It has a... I use that joke all the time with kids. They love it. They don't. It has a wide base and sides that taper upward.
All right. Let's add 100 milliliters of distilled water to the flask.
You do that.
Let's add 100 milliliters of bleach to the flask. You do that. Let's take scoop. You do that. Take scoop and add sodium perborate to the flask. 1 scoop. You do that.
Take half a scoop of luminol because it's very expensive per volume and add it to the flask.
You do this. You do this all. The flask glows with a bright blue light. Amazing. Chemoluminescence. You can see the interior of the lab for a few seconds. And notice there's a light switch behind the locker. The light from the flask dims and goes out.
Turn on light switch.
The lights overhead flicker on. You can now see the lab. You are still locked inside the science lab, but at least you can see. There's a light switch behind the metal locker. A bucket is on the floor. Near the wall is a counter, a sink, and a metal box. A red balloon bobs against the ceiling above your head.
Check metal box.
You look at the box. It's a metal safe. It's currently closed, and there's a keypad on the front.
Check workbench or counter.
You look at the counter. You see a lab sink, an electrical outlet, an eyedropper bottle, and a strange device. There are also some posters taped above the sink.
Check posters.
You look at the posters. One poster says, "Be a good scientist. Keep your labware clean." The other poster displays the colors and numbers of the pH scale.
Check eyedropper bottle.
It's a bottle of pH indicator solution. Squeezing some droplets onto or into any chemical will cause a color change depending on its pH level.
Empty flask into sink.
You do that.
Check strange device.
Ooh, the device. It's strange. It's a black cylinder with a pointy metal tip on one end. You might know what this is, Bill. An electrical cord is attached to the other end. There's a black button on the side of the device and a warning sticker.
Plug in strange device.
Where would you like to plug it in?
Into the electrical outlet.
You do that. It doesn't do anything.
I'm missing something important.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I am.
3 things. There's only 3 things you've missed that are important.
Okay, well, examine balloon.
It's a red balloon. It floats several feet above your head, just out of reach, of course. There's a large black H on it and a small aluminum capsule, or aluminium, if you're British, capsule is tied to it.
Take device.
The device is small enough to hold in one hand. Your thumb rests near the black button. So enticing.
Yeah, push the button.
The device makes a loud sound when you hold down the button, but it doesn't appear to do anything else.
Use device on aluminum capsule.
You point the device towards the aluminum capsule and press the button. It makes a loud buzz and an arc of electricity is emitted from the electrode, hits the aluminum capsule, and causes the balloon to burst into flame, charring the ceiling. The capsule drops to the ground.
The good old hydrogen balloon.
Yes.
One of my
Not
favorites.
an HE balloon, an H balloon.
Okay, take capsule.
You now have the capsule.
Unscrew.
You unscrew the capsule and pull it apart. Inside is a rolled up piece of paper.
Examine paper.
It's completely blank.
Use dropper on paper.
You drop some of the liquid onto the paper. In bright orange print, it now says, this note was written with lemon juice. The code to open the safe is the pH of lemon juice, bleach, and water.
Pour bleach into flask.
You do that.
Okay. Use dropper on flask.
You do that, and as the drop enters the bleach, it turns it a deep blue.
Dump flask into sink.
You do that.
Turn on water.
You do that.
Rinse flask in sink.
You're being very clean, and I appreciate that.
Add 100 milliliters of water to the flask.
You do that.
Use dropper on flask of water.
The water turns a pleasing shade of dark green.
Check posters.
You look at the poster. It's got a bunch of colored tabs, each with a number on them.
Check number of orange corresponding is pH 2. Check number corresponding to dark blue or deep blue, 12. Check number associated with dark green, 7.
Okay. Go to metal box.
Okay, you are there.
Enter on keypad 2, 12, 7.
The numbers only go up to 9.
Okay. Enter 2127.
You hear the safe beep twice and unlock.
Open safe.
Inside is the key to the lab.
Take key.
You now have the key to the lab.
Use key on lab door.
You unlock the door.
Open door.
You open the door.
Celebrate freedom.
I don't know how to celebrate.
Leave laboratory.
Congratulations, you've won the game. The end. Your score
Awesome.
is Avogadro's number.
Ooh, all right. It's time to do some science. We've got our safety equipment on. We've got our lab coats.
Get my book
and
black ones because, you know, Memento Mori, that's our national color.
So we're going to do a demonstration of reappearing ink, as I would refer to it. And to do that, we're going to use chemical indicator. So you can buy lab grade chemical indicators, or you can make them. And so I hacked off a piece of this red cabbage and just boiled it in water.
It smells not good.
Yeah, it's potent.
Wow. But it's, I got it. It's a dark, dark, dark purple.
So what you'll need is just a Q-tip or a paintbrush.
Got a Q-tip right here.
All right, cool. And then a piece of paper.
I call that nature's paintbrush.
I got my paper here. And if you're doing this along with us at home, a more absorbent paper will work a little bit better, right? Typing paper will work fine. And then, yeah, in a little cup, just for ease of use, in one cup, add a little bit of vinegar or a little bit of lemon juice. Just a hair, because you're just going to soak it into the Q-tip and use it to paint. And then in the other one, add a little bit of baking soda and water.
Oh, right.
You've got your Q-tip, which has 2 ends on it. You don't want to use the same end for both liquids. And what you want to do is just paint a really simple picture. You want to get enough on the paper that it soaks in, but you don't want to rip the paper. You want it to dry fairly quickly. So, you know, dip one end of your Q-tip into the vinegar. Then I'm going to dip the other end of my Q-tip.
Should I blow on this to dry it?
Other liquid, yeah, exactly. So ideally what you want is completely invisible, and you can see just a little bit. So if you can dry it off pretty good, you're going to take another Q-tip or paintbrush, dip it into your indicator this time, and you just want to smear it. Now you can use a little spray bottle and it'll appear a little faster, and you just want to rub it over. You don't want to pour it over or really soak it.
Okay, I got my indicator. I'm redoing this, and then just paint it on.
And then you're just going to paint it on. And as you paint it on, you should see, if you did this right,
whoa,
an image start to appear.
And there's my little skull.
There you go. You know what? It's funny because I was going to draw exactly that.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what? You're going to draw that. So I just wrote hi. And there you go. So that's how you can make a really cool little appearing picture if you know a little bit about chemical indicators. And, you know, it's an important skill, not just because it's one way of exploring the world and learning about chemicals around you, but you never know when it's going to help you escape a laboratory that you find yourself, you know, suddenly locked in with no explanation whatsoever. I gotta say, I had a blast. It was super fun playing games. It was super fun doing some science. It was really good to see you again. I really want to thank you for participating in this series. If you know anybody who might want to participate in this series, or if you yourself think that you would be a good fit to talk some science, send me a message. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Go check out Jared's work at memento-mori.com.
It's Latin, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I will have the relevant links down below. Check out his Patreon, check out my Patreon. And until next time, do more science.
Have more fun.
There you go. Awesome. All right. Have a good night. We'll see you next time. Well, I won't see you next. Well, yeah.
Well,
okay, anyways.
yeah, we'll figure
All
it
right,
out.
hold tight.